Hello, and welcome to Thriving Kids, a podcast from the Child Mind Institute that helps you raise emotionally healthy children. I'm Dr. Dave Anderson, clinical psychologist and your host. We're just a week out from Thanksgiving, and as we come together with our families, routines can magically evaporate and stress can creep in. Between travel, screen time, picky eaters, well-meaning relatives, and a host of other stressors, even the happiest gatherings can feel incredibly overwhelming. To help us run the gauntlet of the holidays, I'm joined by Dr. Kimberly Alexander, a clinical psychologist here at the Child Mind Institute. We'll talk about keeping structure and sanity during school breaks, making family meals less stressful, and finding ways for parents to fill their own cups too. Let's get into it. I want to be clear in starting off with two things here. First, the holidays, for all of our parent listeners, may not be for you, and we're going to talk about how to actually run that gauntlet. And I'm also talking to an incredible expert we have here at the Child Mind Institute, Dr. Kimberly Alexander. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Dr. Alexander has shared with us that she is a recent parent. Your child is
7 months old.
Right.
So definitely feeling it.
We're recording this about mid-morning at our offices, our headquarters in New York City. You have had no breakfast, only
Yes.
coffee. Your child is fed.
Yes.
And you're just kind of running a little bit on fumes here, right?
For sure. But also, this is typical for the last couple of months.
I also think it's the perfect mindset, running on fumes, for
Yes.
parents who might be listening to this episode to benefit from your expertise,
This
because
is-
you are walking the walk.
Yes, for sure, in real time.
So in terms of the first things that we think about, so obviously, you work with patients. Tell us a little about your practice and kind of the families you work with.
Yeah, so I work in the Mood Disorder Center. I'm the director of our team. In the Mood Disorder Center, we're working with a lot of those angsty, depressed, irritable patients, some of the kiddos that are in the 8 to 9, 10 age range, and also like the teens and some young adults. I do a lot of parent work as well. I think that it's just really important to have parent work included in the child work, that honestly, we are really looking to make this a comprehensive type of treatment.
So speaking to your expertise in mood disorders, how does the fact the holidays happen over the winter affect folks' mood?
Oh, yes, for sure. So I think there are a couple of factors, also some of the things that we're going to talk about today. So the holidays are a part of it. Also, school just started. So school started in September just started in September. And honestly, I think there's usually a ramp up of both intensity, the angst of, we have to wake up early and we have to get through the school day, and there are tests all of a sudden every week.
Yeah.
And so parents are really trying to field for their child how to manage these emotions and the resistance of having to get back to the grind.
Yeah.
And then this anticipation for the holidays and getting the time off, and everyone's ideal versus what is. The ideal of we're all going to have this free time and we're going to kind of hang around and do what we prefer to do. And the what is that sometimes you're not going to be able to be on screens all day, but sometimes you might have to spend a lot more time structuring your kid's schedule where school structured their schedule for them.
So wait, this brings up a really good thing. What do you think most parents' ideal might be for the holiday time their family spends together? And then what do you think their biggest fear might be? Because I think you hit that with the all day on screens. We're going to start with that.
Yes.
Parents' biggest fear, if they're sitting there going oh my God, I'm failing at the holidays, what are they afraid might happen?
I think they're afraid of the crash out. I think they're also afraid of having to really structure time and fill in the blanks of all of this free time. Are they okay with their child waking up midday? Is that okay? Is it ethical? But also, is it functional?
Right.
And then how do you move the child through the day and keep them engaged? And then questioning, well, they could just be on screens, but are we okay with that? And what's the impact of that?
Well, and I think there's a lot of media messaging that we see and get shaped by, especially in the early years of parenting, that if we look at kind of the millennial parenting generation, if I look at Instagram, my kids are 9 and 6, on any holiday, like the day after a holiday,
Yes.
I'm often seeing families I admire in matching pajamas,
Yes.
all looking happy,
Yes,
all
for
looking
sure.
well-fed.
For
No
sure.
one seeming to have a tantrum. Everyone seeming to be enjoying their family time together, and also doing activities that parents can truly have pride in. They're taking a hike. They're
Yes.
walking the dog.
Yes.
That kind of stuff.
Yes.
They're really getting outside, or they're cooking together.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I find myself engaging in this little bit of a social comparison effect because I don't find that people get up exactly the same time. I don't find they always want to wear the matching pajamas. There's a lot of discussion, argument about activity, things like that.
For sure.
You know, what do we think are some of the things parents are hoping happen over the holidays?
Yes. I mean, I think all of that. I think that they're hoping that their child is as compliant as possible with all of the activities and excited to engage and spend time and connect, right? Like, I think at the end of the day, we all want connection. I think our children want that as well. Now, who they want to connect with, that's the question.
Yes.
And how, I think it's really a conversation about how can they connect with their friends and their family members, their relatives. How can we kind of keep everyone connected within the same home or within shared activities? So it might mean bringing the friend on the hike as a way to negotiate your kid going on the hike.
Absolutely. So I like this is shading into kind of our behavioral structure here. So you referenced the notion that parents might want to think ahead of time about a certain level of structure of the schedule. Now, parents, before we answer this question, we want you to know that both Dr. Kim and I are sitting here very much aware that you are trying to plan for the feeding of all kinds of people. You may be trying to plan for gift giving of some sort for all kinds of people.
Yes.
That alone may be overwhelming in terms of structure.
For sure.
But assuming that we have kind of food and gifts mildly taken care of, what do we think about holiday structure and schedule?
Yes. I think the big takeaway point that I like to share with all families, and I'm trying to manage for myself, is also know thy child. So if your child in past years have
This sounds very holiday-y, using the old-timey
know
language.
thy child. Yes.
Know thy child.
Yes. And it's like, yes, we can set all of these expectations based on the research and the textbook and the theory.
Yeah.
And yes, there's a very practical piece that we have to take into account. If you know that your child typically does not like the mac and cheese or typically knows the mac and cheese as it stands, don't add the ingredient on this day.
Right.
Maybe test that out a couple of weeks prior, right? And then also know thy child in terms of, what do they typically like to do when they spend time at home? What does the evening schedule look like after school? And then knowing that there's a way to negotiate where you feel like you are in control of the negotiation as opposed to acquiescing to the child's protest.
Completely. And I think what you bring up for me with the macaroni and cheese example, which I think is something that I often think about and will tell parents over the holidays that, like, I can't have all the things.
Yes.
Like, if I am sitting there saying to myself, I want my children to sit at the table with relatives and engage in conversation, I'm going to need there not to be a huge discussion about how much the food is terrible.
Yes.
And
Yes,
that's
for
where
sure.
I can't have all the things. So I need to be negotiating myself as a parent and saying
For
okay,
sure.
if I want this, like, to your point, I was thinking about macaroni and cheese. I think it was a very recent holiday, in fact, when someone put a crust on the
Yes.
macaroni and cheese. My kids are used to microwave macaroni and cheese. That is a macaroni and cheese that is
Fair.
the pinnacle. That is it. Maybe Panera's mac and cheese on a special day.
It is good.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. It's really good. But, like, if I really want the dinner to go well, I'm not putting a crust in the mac and cheese because that's not going to make it so they answer grandma's questions about school. It makes it
Yes.
so that they're more likely to be complaining about macaroni and cheese. And then I'm worried not just about their lack of gratefulness or gratitude. I think I just made up a word. Their conduct at the dinner table and the fact they're disrespecting a relative.
Yeah, for sure. And like within my own family, yes, my mother has definitely put the unusual ingredient in the stuffing.
Yes.
And also, I think it's know thy child. So she knows that for me, I typically am a person that can tolerate some unusual ingredients and some new experiences. I am a foodie at heart, so I'm willing to try. But also, there are family members that we have that are not and are maybe picky eaters or have really strong preferences. So this goes back to the know thy child. If you know your child is one that will comment, criticize, and resist in a way that might turn the dinner into more of a conflict and a crash out, then I probably would say, let's manage expectations. This isn't the hill we want to fight on.
Right. There are also enough conflicts and crash outs that we won't be able to predict. We may as well actually look at these.
Yes.
Now, you are about to embark on a holiday where your child will be 8 and 9 months old.
Yes.
How adherent to a particular routine or schedule are you at this phase of your child's development?
Hard.
I realize this might be too close.
No,
but
no,
so-
I've been thinking of it. So, I would say the fundamentals for me at this point with a 7-month-old is sleep.
Yeah.
I know that he is his best self when he has had sleep. And so whatever it takes for him to have that sleep, I will do it. If you need the nap, take the nap. I will find a place for you to nap.
Yeah.
If you need to go to sleep at 7, we will find ourselves home at 7.
Yeah.
So if I'm hosting Thanksgiving this year, that was technically the plan, it's going to be a Thanksgiving lunch. Who wants to show up, show up. If you don't want to show up, that's fine. No harm, no foul. But this kid needs to go to sleep at 7.
So for our listeners here who are listening to Dr. Kim's wisdom, I want to also unpack the wisdom that you have in there. You are looking at this ahead of time. You're thinking simply about a single factor that's really important for your kids' well-being. And then you are setting boundaries, which is hard to do for a lot of people with their families. You are saying, this is how the celebration will happen. This is how I can truly celebrate with you.
Yes.
I want to. I love you all. I can't wait to celebrate.
Yes.
But this is how it's going to happen. Like, it's going to be a lunch. It's going to be on that day. I don't need you in my house at night.
Yes.
Like that's what I'm getting if I'm reading between the line as one of your relatives.
And it's the what, it's also the how you say it, right? So I think that structuring of how you communicate those boundaries is really important.
Yeah.
That, yes, all these boundaries make sense. And I'm very playful in how I communicate with my family.
Yeah.
My family also knows my tendency to, for structure.
Yeah.
It comes with the Kim package.
I
I like structure, right? And I think most people really value structure. Even our kids who say they want all the free time that they want.
Yeah.
That ultimately school in and of itself is a structure that is kind of imposed and created, and that we actually see that kids can move through the school day and move from task to task, generally, within reason.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, what I really like about what you're modeling for those who are listening to us and trying to get this holiday wisdom is that first, it's full ownership of the fact this is the Kim package. This structure comes with it. The fact that you're also talking you don't send out a group text to family being come by for lunch or don't. I don't care. Bring your own drinks. That's you're probably going to do it in a more playful way and letting them know kind of where the intersection of life stage is. I think the other thing I hear in it that I really love is that I find in many families we consult with, people are playing to the kind of lowest common denominator of their most chaotic family member. Mm-hmm. Basically, it's how are we going to keep this person in a cage?
Yes.
And that's not necessary. I can imagine that some families are going to be I could send out that text. Mm-hmm. I could do the Kim package. Mm-hmm. I could send it out. I could send it to the group text. I could be bounded. I could be playful. And someone is going to consider an affront, that I'm trying to keep them from my baby or their niece or something like that. Or that I'm not engaging in our family traditions. They're going to throw a fit.
Yes.
How would you recommend people deal with that family member who makes it about them?
I love that part.
Yes.
So my takeaway is that who enjoys hearing no?
Mm-hmm.
Who enjoys hearing no? Yeah. So I think there's also a managing expectations for yourself and being able to tolerate that. Yes, not everyone's going to be happy. No one enjoys hearing no. Who enjoys also knowing that the holiday that we typically know is handled a specific way has now shifted because of a new addition or a new shift in the family dynamic. Yeah. So I think there is an acceptance of saying, some people, it's going to ruffle some feathers. That is fine. And there's always room for two things. One, that this is not a forever plan. There's another holiday, there's another year. We're going to gradually move back towards the structure that we know as we take time to train ourselves, train our families, train the 7-month-olds to tolerate this new experience for them. Yeah. And then the other piece is saying that there's always room for repair. Yeah. The next day, you can have the conversation. You can ease through that conversation and really talk about what felt like a slight
Yeah.
and what was the intention, what was the impact, do the appropriate level of apologizing. Let's not over apologize or under apologize. Let's acknowledge and validate that, yes, this is a
apologies
change.
out there.
Yeah,
We don't need
apologies
to
are
keep
out
going.
there, and we can validate that it was uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for everyone in many
Lots of
different
problematic
ways.
family members ask for apologies over and over until they believe you've served penance. And I
Yes.
think like everything that you're highlighting are so emotionally above board in terms of, the faith that things aren't permanent and there's possibility for repair,
Yeah.
and the notion that like you're going to do your thing.
Yes.
And you're going to do the things that are emotionally above board, representative and respectful, or representative of respectful behaviors in a relationship. And then you're going to kind of leave it there.
For sure.
And like people can come meet you where you're at and understand that
Now,
you're investing.
It's not a perfect system.
Yeah.
This is also a trial and error. I have had this child for 7 months,
Yes.
and I have
Yes.
experienced the crash out.
Yes, yes.
I have extended myself at times for family dinners on Sunday and said, "Oh, I just can't say no. I'm just going to stick it out for a couple more hours." And
Yeah.
then I get home at like 9 or 10 p.m., and it is impossible to put this child to sleep. It feels like they're possessed. Like I'm like trying so hard.
Yeah.
And eventually he goes to sleep. But like just to see the pain and the agony of not wanting to fall asleep and the whining and the crying, I have learned in my own exposure that like this is not worth it. I will just leave earlier.
So what I love about the vulnerability there is the fact that there is the Dr. Kim recommendation, and then there is the follow through on this. Like I commonly will tell parents that like I parent my wife and I can't speak for my wife. She may parent perfectly, but I parent mostly an instinct.
Yeah.
The rebound is really where I shine. It's that I can reflect on the kind of advice you're giving right now and be like, oh yeah. Because like
Yes.
in reality, even as you were saying this, I was thinking about my own way of reacting to this within my family, that like I kind of hear like an Anna Kendrick snarky voice in my head being like,
Yes.
oh, Muffin, I'm so sorry the holidays aren't about you, but it's not forever. Like that kind of thing. And that's like, that would be my first inclination on like a text. And then like, obviously if I call a family member Muffin, I don't think they're going to see that as the most respectful thing for them. And maybe a little minimizing, but at the same time, I am trying to get us all to a place where we can kind of cope. So look, before we pivot from schedule, I'll just say two other things. I often consult with kids, families who have kids in kind of late elementary school and middle school. I would say the fundamental principle in those families for structuring schedule over the holidays is that I tell parents, think about what you have late in the day that it reinforces for the kids. Think about simply what you want earlier in the day. Make that expectation clear. Make the stuff later in the day kind of dependent on it. Let's go to teenagers. So I want to ask you a question about this. If we talk about teenagers in the holidays, we know teenagers already are having a tough time spending time with us.
Yeah.
Now they're locked with us.
Yes.
There's no school, there's no structure to their schedule, there's no extracurriculars. They're locked in the house. What do we want to tell parents about a way of centering themselves about their teenagers' interaction with them over the holidays?
Yes.
What would you
Oh
highlight?
my gosh,
Yeah.
the validation is key. Like one thing I know about teenagers, and I mean all children and specifically teenagers, they want to be heard. And thinking of like the types of conversations that you're having with your teen, whether they're about politics or hot button topics in general,
Totally.
leaving room for them to share their thoughts and actually moving towards critical thinking rather than criticizing.
Yeah.
I think that is so key. I find that children and teens really just want to share their perspective, and imagine yourself in a meeting with a colleague that might have more years experience and them minimizing your perspective just because you haven't had enough experience. And imagine that your teen is also experiencing this power dynamic and that they really want to be heard and understood for their perspective, and that there are ways to kind of maneuver through those conversations, offering your perspective while not diminishing theirs.
I'm picturing many parents who, even in listening to that, a light bulb might go off in their head where they're saying, I thought she was going to say the bare minimum about what I want you to say to grandma and how I want you to be present at the table. When in reality, I think you're talking about a trade-off where like, yes, you can tell your kid the behavioral expectations, but otherwise lean into curiosity about what matters to them and what they're doing.
For sure.
Because maybe they're on their phone, but like we can ask like, what are you up to on your phone? What are you watching?
Enter their world,
Yeah.
right? And for the younger kids, we might call it child-centered or child-directed play.
Sure.
But there is a version of that fits for teens and may not be child-directed play, but it is entering their world and listening more, allowing them to just free associate through their thoughts.
Right.
It's something that my mother very skillfully did, and I don't think she realized what that was. But honestly, I probably overshared way too many times, and whatever she needed to know, she knew and knew how to guide me away from whatever those decisions were. So it really is a strategy of, if you leave room for the statements to be said, the statements will be said.
I think you're reminding me how much I've even learned in the past few weeks when I ask teens what they were just looking at on their phone in the waiting room. And like, they'll say, I want to show you. And like, I've learned so much about teens' interest in fantasy football, new TikTok trends, all kinds of stuff. That's actually much more fascinating, understanding their world, than my stock questions of like, how is school?
Yes.
Like, what is going on? Is
For
your math teacher nicer now?
Yes.
So we've hit on, at least in this whirlwind, few minutes here, a number of things about structuring schedule across age ranges, a number of centering thoughts about parents and how they might set boundaries around certain things, a few pointers about picky eaters and the notion that maybe the holidays isn't the moment to make your kid not a picky eater.
Yes.
I want to talk about another hot button topic for the holidays, gift giving.
Yes,
Yes,
for sure.
Now, to map this out in terms of what I'd like you to react to on gift giving, first is the common thing of, why aren't my kids grateful? Secondly, how much is enough? And third, why doesn't anybody give me gifts? These are the three things that I think we hear from parents most. So first, how do we get gratitude?
Yes.
Like, how do you think we engender that over the holidays?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's a lifelong skill as well, right?
Yeah.
I think many of us struggle with moments where we want to appreciate what we have, and also may have like a mental filter and like a negative bias to the experiences that we are having, right? There's a need to compare, especially with siblings. I've experienced it. I probably still experience it at times with my siblings, that there is the sense of who's getting more, who's showing up as the favorite. And, hot button topic, no sibling is the favorite. And if you just had a conflict and just worked on regulating one child, it makes sense that you'll feel quite frustrated and exasperated with the situation, and this is not the moment that you want to spend all your time with this one child, right?
Yes.
And so, we will see the tendency to not necessarily experience the most gratitude for the gift, let alone when you're thinking of behaviorism and reinforcers, like, are the gifts even that reinforcing for the child? So when, Aunt Kim knits the socks and says, this is your gift this year, I totally think it's fair that a child's like, I didn't want socks.
Yeah.
I wanted this video game, or I wanted this other item, right? So I think it is fair to, again, manage expectations that, like, not every child is able to truly invest in appreciating the socks that you knit.
Yeah.
And how much work are we doing to prep for what are the gifts that you're giving, and what is the conversation around gratitude day in and day out throughout the family over time, year after year, right? So how are we prepping for this?
Gratitude
what is
isn't only
the
something
family
you bring up to the
culture,
holidays.
about gratitude? And,
Well, I think you bring this up with just enough time that any parent listening might be able to bring a gratitude practice into their family early on, so that they're not just crash landing into gratitude at the holidays and being like, by the way, tomorrow you better be thankful. Like, we spent a lot of money on this, and also Aunt Kim's socks are amazing. So say thank you. Like, I get that parents feel that desire to like prime the kid, but also like, gratitude's learned through multiple behavioral trials. It isn't learned just because on the holiday morning your kid is so good at being thank you.
Yes, for sure. It's a hard ask, and at the same rate, I always tell families, and you can do what you want, right? Like, it is your family, it is the culture that you're building within your family. You get to make those decisions, and also know that, like, it's another know thy child. Like, you can have the conversation the night before, you can have the conversation that day, say. And even if this hasn't been something that has been prepped and practiced in your family, I think the other question is like, well, how do I handle it in the moment? And how I handle it in the moment is often validation first.
Yeah.
I think it's a common conversation that we're having about how to open up and listen to our child.
Yeah.
But truly, it's the approaching with curiosity, as you mentioned. Honestly, more silence than more statements. So listen.
You mean not immediately saying something about their reaction and kind of letting it play out over time.
And knowing that reaction may not be to serve the child, but maybe to serve your own sense of effort, right? That you put in the effort, and like it feels good for us to hear thank you for the efforts that we put in. And that right now it may not be about you in that moment. It might be about the child really learning how to appreciate the gift and just say, how can I use it? What can I make use of?
Well, I think you're also highlighting how much gift receiving is kind of an emotion regulation training task for kids.
Yes.
In that, like, you're sitting there, you might be getting not the thing that you were hoping for or expecting. That might still be coming down the pike. You're trying to say thank you, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I just think last holiday season, my kids fell in love in the car with Daveed Diggs of Hamilton fame. Had a song called "Puppy for Hanukkah," and like it's perfect because he goes through the nights of Hanukkah and he's like staying emotionally regulated because he expects each gift to be a puppy and it is not. And like
amazing.
It's quite inventive, but like
oh yeah, that's so clever.
It's the emotion regulation of working through those moments and hoping
for sure
that there is a puppy or something on the other end. There's also lots of kids who end up really disappointed and feeling like they didn't communicate themselves terribly well in their letters to whomever or whatever it might be. Yeah.
For sure. I mean, and then again, I like to always reference our experiences in adulthood. What adult hasn't had some sort of secret Santa or some sort of gift giving at work and got the item that they're like, what is this?
Right.
What am I going to do?
Do these people know me at all?
Exactly. And how we show up as appreciative and thankful and also holding some room for a fair amount of disappointment. So I think that's the other point that I forgot to mention, that every emotion has its space. Every emotion is allowed. I am not going to tell a child that they should not feel disappointed that they got socks instead of the video game.
Totally.
That feels like that's valid, that makes sense. Even though you can appreciate the gift, you can also feel sad and disappointed at the same time.
And I like would follow that up with like, I think it's the distinction between the emotions and behavior. Like it is totally fine to be disappointed about socks.
Yes.
At the same time, you don't tell grandma that she is awful for giving you socks. You also don't rip the socks in half and run out of the room. Like, but you just kind of sit there. Like, it's okay. You can sit with the disappointment. Like, socks, they're not usually on the Santa list. Like,
and honestly, you're reminding me of just my own family dynamic and modeling, and that I dearly, dearly love and miss my grandmother. And honestly, she would give the gift back right in front of you. She would just hand it back, like, I don't need these gloves. And so, and like, think of that modeling of like, wow, I grew up around a person that would generally tell you directly, this is not needed.
I'm seeing a little bit why all of a sudden, as we're putting you together psychodynamically, the Kim package includes no fear around boundary setting while also a psychologist packaging around it in understanding communication skills. Like, you don't sound like you're as direct or as blunt as your grandma.
No,
but you sound like you're carrying the torch of, I'm still going to let people know.
The way. Like, it's a family way. I think if you met all my family members, you'll see a bit of that that thread running straight through all of us.
I just love the notion of like I always think about this, like, I think I can handle it as an adult. Like, if I got something and then like my wife is just like, this isn't what I wanted. Like, can we just return this and like do that? Like, that's, I feel hurt. I feel like I considered her and I want her to feel seen.
Of course. All of
But if
that's
it
true.
really wasn't it, then like I understand.
Yes.
But like, then I think about the fact that like I frequently get gifts, as my kids are proceeding through elementary school years that they've made. Let's be honest. I value the fact that they put effort into loving me as a parent and giving me the gift. The gift itself is no prize.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I am not sitting there being like, oh my God, thank you, I needed
coffee
this.
cup.
Yes, exactly. And you'll be embarking on so many of these over the next few years.
Yes.
But it's that kind of thing where it's like, I will see my kids come in and be like, where's the I made you that picture frame. Why isn't it on
Oh,
your
yes,
nightstand?
of course.
And it's like, the stars were falling off and the paint,
Yes.
I wasn't sure what it was made of, but it was rubbing off on my hand. And like,
The macaroni is spoiling.
that's the whole thing. We're like, it smells, but like, it is there. It is there.
Yes,
Like, I've
for
placed
sure.
it. So, okay. Bringing the podcast in for a landing for this episode, what I just want to kind of like end on is a note where anybody who's been listening to this is sitting there and saying like, okay, there's so many needs that I'm thinking about. I am really trying to think about how to give gifts, how to feed everybody, how to structure the schedule, all those kind of things that are all part of getting ready for the holidays and adjusting your own
Yes,
expectations.
yeah.
Let's leave parents with a couple thoughts. How would you tell someone who perhaps is in that role of coordinating the holidays how to fill their own cup? What will you be doing pre-lunch or post-lunch on Thanksgiving?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think the irony is that in my takeaway is that we're saying all of this, and then I'm also asking everyone to give themselves grace and maybe even forget some of this when things go awry.
It's a good idea. Right. Ignore much of the podcast.
Yes, ignore much of the podcast, that you're doing the best that you can.
Yeah.
That is something I'm telling myself within, and post the event. That at the end of the day, that none of this, as I mentioned earlier, is a forever plan. And I really hold true to that. All of these like dynamics shift over time ever so slightly, and some to the point where we may not even realize there has been a shift year after year. The holiday of next year will look different to this one, and you can try picking at least one thing that you want to work on that you think is manageable. Let's not throw all of the behavioral tactics at the child on the holiday where there's not as much structure and sleep is all over the place. Let's choose one thing and maybe communicate with family members that this is going to be our other project in the background of celebrating.
There is such wisdom in choosing your battles and getting through. I also like that your last comment, which I don't want to gloss over, was that you can adjust the expectation. You finally just be like, I know. Like, I know we're not doing well at mealtime. You don't need to tell me. We don't need to have a long discussion about it. I'm working on it. It's just not going to happen on this holiday.
Exactly. For
sure.
I
like it. Yeah. And I'm trying to center myself as I walk through this and trying not to make this. Your thing about it not being forever leads to this reflection where like I noticed that certain family rituals over time, like I have loved, sometimes I've been really annoyed by, sometimes I've like really despised them. And like even through the lens of my kids getting older, there are rituals I have re-fallen in love with as I experience them differently year over year.
For sure.
Which like isn't like it's the notion that like in any given year I can let go that it didn't go that
the traditions,
well.
all the traditions don't need to happen all the time, every year, always, right? Like that also is setting this precedent that is really hard for perfectionism, let alone, and something that that's really hard for all of us to maintain. There is going to be change. Maybe not every tradition this year, and pick one tradition that you feel like is manageable for your children, manageable for your family, and something that you can practice and commit to and train through. So train yourself, train your child, train the family to get behind and set the parameters that make sense for your family at that time. And know that next year it'll be a new conversation, different story.
Yeah.
Starting
you can come
fresh.
back, listen to the podcast. Now that we told you to ignore most of it,
Yes.
pick a couple new things and focus on those the next year. That can work. Yeah. All right. Well, look, this has been an incredibly wise tour through preparation for the holidays. We've hit a number of topics. Thriving Kids podcast listeners, we thank you for getting this far. Dr. Kim, we thank you for your sage advice. What you will all find is in our show notes, we will link to other articles on our childmind.org website that help you to prepare for the holidays. If you're looking for deeper dives on some of these topics than Dr. Kim has given you today, not to mention that we will be doing a follow-up Q&A episode on the holidays. So if you felt like Dr. Kim and I did not get to a particular thing that you are just freaking out about ahead of the holidays, please submit your questions online and we will try to answer them in a future episode. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thanks, Dr. Kim.
Thanks for having me. This was great.